All right, first and seventh hours, I'm recording fourth hour today so that you can get the lesson, and we'll try to work through all the pieces that you've missed so far. So today you just get to sit back and watch class as fourth hour learns. So the things that we're going to be covering today is getting the audience's attention. Some of you have already done some stuff on that. We'll talk a little bit about the art and the science of getting an audience's attention. Can you hit the lights for me so that we can see a little better? Does that mess up on the video camera? No, you okay? Secondly, keeping the audience's attention. How do you keep an audience's attention in a speech? And then finally, ending memorably. So how do you begin to approach your conclusions, all right? So that's what we're going to be covering today. All right, first off, some things that you should have, can you flip the light back on just for the camera's sake? You'll be in charge of that. Some things that you should have turned in already is your speech organizer. That should already be done. All of you have turned that in, hopefully, and if not, hopefully you've caught up on that. And then secondly, you should have already emailed your outline to me. If you haven't done that, fourth hour, first hour, seventh hour, any of you guys that haven't done that, make sure that you do that tonight. Tonight's going to be the last chance for you to make that up, because at that point, your outline, which I gave you that outline format paper, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so your outline, should have written your introduction now, and we'll make some revisions as we go on before we speak. But you should already have those two things done, your speech organizer, and then working off of that, you should have already written your outline. Okay, any questions on any of that? How many of you are caught up to that point? Doesn't it feel good?
I told you.
Feels fine.
I know, when you stay up with the process, it's super easy. Yeah.
Is it okay if I re-email you? Because I only sent you my introduction. I thought that's what we were
Yep.
supposed to do.
Yep, that's fine.
Totally
Yeah,
forgot my
anything
outline.
that you're behind on. And remember, all my classes are in different spots all the time, so hopefully I'm telling you correctly. But everybody should be caught up to that point, okay?
Wait, hold on.
What?
We had to turn this in?
One of the hours didn't have to. I'd have to check back to my notes because I was gone last week. But if you have it, just show it to me at the end and
Yeah, I
I'll
don't
give you
think we were supposed to.
Your hour wasn't? I think my other two were, but the way the time fell.
Are we supposed to have the conclusion done?
No, we're going to talk about that today, the
Okay.
conclusion. Okay? All right. So let's do a lesson hook. You've learned about hooks for your introductions. Let's do a little lesson hook, okay? So I'm going to set the timer for 12 seconds, or I'll just count in my head because it's only 12 seconds. I'm going to put up 10 words, all right? And your job, you've done similar things like this in here, your job is to write as many of the 10 words with the correct corresponding numbers after the 12 seconds is up. So take out a sheet of paper. It can just be scratch paper. You can rip off half and share with someone else. Number 1 through 10. 1 through 10. 1 through 10. I should be wearing my microphone for the videotape. Okay, number 1 through 10, and are you ready?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to put up 10 words, and try and write as many of those 10 words with the correct corresponding number. So number 1 has to be that word, and so on. By the way, nice haircut. Did you get a haircut? Yeah. Looks good. All right, so you ready? Here's the 10 words.
Those aren't words.
I know, do your best.
Wait, we shouldn't write now.
Do your best.
We can't write now.
Oh, yeah, you can't write yet. You can't write yet. You're just looking at it.
Oh.
I can't see it. Age cheating.
1 through 10. Okay, that's a little bit longer than 12 seconds because you guys kind of messed up with the directions. So, write down 1 through 10, whichever ones you remember. Don't consult. 1 through 10.
3 of them.
Let me guess, are they 1, 2, and 3?
No, it's 1, 2, and 8.
Oh. You're actually illustrating my point already. All right, how many of you got at least 1 and 2 correct?
I think
One
I
or
did.
two. One and
1 and 2 with the correct number.
Those two, no.
How many of you got, keep your hand up if you got number 3 correct. Keep your hand up if you got 4 correct. 5 correct. Again, number 5. Oh, actually, I better put them back up for you to know. How many of you got number 5 correct? V-E-K.
Oh, dang. I didn't even
How many of you got number 6 correct? Okay, so the hands are going down. There were a lot of hands up here. There's only 2 hands up now right here on number 6. Okay, let's keep going. How many of you got number 7? How many of you got number 8
Mark,
correct?
cheater.
Woo! You're lying back.
I'm not lying.
You just
Okay,
went down.
raise your hand again. How many of you got number 8 correct? Number 9 correct? And number 10 correct. Okay, interestingly, the hands started to go back up when we got towards the end of the list. So the hands were kind of high up here because you always kind of remember what's first, okay? Hands went down here. The middle stuff, a lot of you didn't remember the middle stuff. How many of you have nothing in the middle? A lot of you. Okay. And then, interestingly, the hands started to go up again towards the end of the list. Okay. This is the way your brain works. There's a lot of brain research surrounding this. There's actually a name for this fact that we remember the beginnings of things and the ends of things, and we tend to have a lot harder time with the middle. So let me put up, whoops, pointing at you like I have remote you. Okay. This says brain research. This is from a book entitled How the Brain Learns. Brain research indicates that in a learning episode, we tend to remember best what comes first, good, and we remember second best what comes last. We tend to remember least that which comes just past the middle. How many of you found that true on your little list? Okay, good.
I found that true.
What comes just past the middle of the learning episode, this is known as the primacy recency effect. Okay, so it's an actual thing. People tend to remember best at the beginning and at the end, and they forget the middle. Now, what does that say for your speeches?
You need to make
We
it
need to make
really interesting.
It's harder. It's
conclusion
harder to
needs to
keep
be-
your audience's attention in the middle. I had a professor in college who would say, it's not how long you can keep somebody's attention, it's how many times you can bring it back. And that was really encouraging to me because you're going to lose people when you're speaking in front of them. There's times that you're going to lose them. So you have to think ahead. How can I, as a speaker, work to bring back the audience throughout the speech? Because the middle is the part that they have a hard time with. Okay? Anybody can get their audience's attention at the beginning and really draw it back at the end. And the brain works that way in your audience. So it's a little bit easier to do that as a speaker. But the middle you have to work a little bit harder at. Okay? So we're going to talk today about getting the audience's attention, keeping the audience's attention. Like I just lost yours, that's okay. It's about bringing it back, just brought it back. And then finally, how to conclude your speech. How many of you are finding, oh my gosh, the conclusion is the hardest part? I have no idea what to write. Okay. I'll be honest with you, conclusions are my hardest part too. But if you don't think about them and plan for them, it just kind of like ends up fading into the distance.
So trying to figure out an interesting summary for everything you just said. It's like it's impossible to Reader's Digest.
Yeah, she said it's hard to come up with a summary for everything you've just said. In English, they kind of teach you, like, summarize everything you've said. In speech, that's kind of annoying. How many of you as listeners, when you're listening to someone go, you already told me all that, why are you repeating it right now? In speech, you want to kind of stay away from that. You just want to wrap up and end memorably. So don't feel like you have to summarize and repeat everything you've said, okay? Because as listeners, we don't like to hear that. We're like, yeah, you just told us, we're not idiots, you know. So keep in mind, English is a little bit different, okay? All right, what's this on the screen, you guys?
Dinosaur.
A dinosaur of a VCR, yes. For today, to start us out with talking about introductions, I'm going to read a passage from the last lecture, what we've been reading from off and on in here, and it's entitled, let me make sure I have this correct, page 150. Getting people's attention. Okay, ready? So many of my students were incredibly smart. I knew they would get into the working world and create terrific new software programs, animation projects, and entertainment devices. I also knew that they had the potential to frustrate millions of people in the process. Those of us who are engineers and computer scientists don't always think how to build things so that they're easy to use. A lot of us are terrible at explaining complex tasks in simple ways. Ever read the instruction booklet for a VCR? Then you've lived the frustration I'm talking about. Now, obviously, you guys growing up in, 2011 right now, probably have never read a VCR manual, but they were very confusing. That's why I wanted to impress upon my students the importance of thinking about the end users of their creation. How could I make it clear to them how important it was to not create technology that is frustrating? I came up with a surefire attention getter, which is what I'm asking you to do in your speeches. When I taught a user interface class at the University of Virginia, I'd bring in a working VCR on the first day. I would put it on the desk in front of the room, I would pull out a sledgehammer, I would destroy the VCR. Then I would say, when we make something hard to use, people get upset. They become so angry that they want to destroy it. We don't want to create things that people will want to destroy. The students would look at me, and I could tell they were shocked, bewildered, and slightly amused. It was exciting for them. They were thinking, I don't know who this guy is, but I'm definitely coming to class tomorrow to check out his next stunt. I sure got their attention. That's always the first step to solving an ignored problem, and first step to your speech. When I left the University of Virginia for Carnegie Mellon, my friend and fellow professor, Gabe Robbins, gave me a sledgehammer with a plaque attached. It read, "So many VCRs, so little time." All of the students from my days at University of Virginia are in the working force now. As they go about creating new technologies, I hope that once in a while I come into their minds, swinging that sledgehammer, reminding them of the frustrated masses yearning for simplicity. Okay, a little bit different context. We're in speech class. We're not computer designers and programmers, okay? But the principle still applies. Get people's attention. So I thought it'd be fun. I'm going to remove this for a moment.
To smash another VCR.
Yeah. So I thought we'd take a moment and have a little fun with our own VCR to remind us to get people's attention at the beginning of the speech. So,
That's why.
who?
That's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Wait, I got a second.
Who would like to take this first swing?
Me!
Miss
I'm
Price.
not crazy, it's true. You get the first swing. Okay, let me
I want to do it.
get this on camera.
I'm doing it next. May I call it?
All right. So, you're the first one. You got to make this count. Okay, Dave?
Use the pointy side.
Same with what
All
I was
right.
saying.
Make safety glasses on. You ready?
I guess so.
Don't feel silly. Just go for it.
Protect my newly surgerized eye.
Yeah. Oh, good one. Good one. Good one. All right. Who's next? Come on, Chase.
Hey, can I go?
Oh,
Get around,
dang,
you guys. Don't
I got
All right, Chase. I'm backing up for you.
Cover him.
Nice.
Nice one.
That's a flying card on that one. Good job. You're up next.
That was
Don't worry, I'll get to you. Oh! Didn't even see that one. It was so fast. You're up.
Guys, it's probably not even dead.
Is this one starting to smell too?
Guys, it's
Okay,
probably
get
not
it
even
right.
gonna do anything.
Just be
Huh?
careful, make sure it doesn't
Oh,
rebound.
don't say that.
anyways.
Own it, sister. Go.
Okay, ready?
Yeah! See, you have flying card. Yeah. She's all, it's probably not gonna do it. Okay, come on up, Anthony.
I love your little voice.
I don't care what you do.
All right, take out some aggression, Anthony. Oh, dear.
Okay.
Flying here. I was here to protect you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I will sacrifice my students. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna step back. Shield. Nice. Good job. Who's up next? Oh my God.
I was going.
See, watch now, it's not gonna make it down. It's probably gonna like rebound back. in
No.
my face.
Own
Flip it over.
it. Yeah.
It smokes.
Okay. Anybody else have to count? Okay.
I like
All
the
right,
first
we'll
swing.
peek on this one.
Yeah,
Do you
Now I can
smell?
barely stand.
Do you smell fumes again?
yeah.
Who wants to tee it up?
I don't know how comfortable I am with you.
I'm pretty good at it. Okay.
Oh, really?
No. It's flying the wall, you guys. Stop it.
All right.
I aim it right.
You should try
Anybody
this.
else?
Can I always
Can I go?
Show us how it's done.
Pointy hand or regular?
Pointy.
And, okay.
If I could like,
Oh, that goes through.
Do it again. Try to like get another.
Anne-Marie wants to do it.
Wait, can I do it?
Ooh, I gotta find a heart on that one. Anne-Marie, give it a whirl. Camera lady.
I feel like it.
I just kind of feel like it's not gonna make
Okay.
Come on. You got it. Okay, one more and then we gotta move on.
come
What's going on?
I'll do it.
flip over. Can you ghetto stop it?
Can you get on?
Yes, we may.
That's Anne-Marie's job.
We need the music from Office Space.
Well, I don't know how big enough
It's
to actually
go
to
crazy
break
on
something
the
like this.
top
You're just
here.
gonna fall.
It's just
Set
gonna
it
fall
down.
over. Don't do it.
Set it down.
It's the other way.
Flip over
Upside
that.
down.
Upside down?
Other side.
Come on, Wyatt. Come on, Wyatt.
Yeah.
You did what I wanted.
All
Yes.
right, good job, one and all. I'll clean that up later. All right. All right, so
Gabe, did you have a...
the whole why of the VCR destruction, the whole why. Just a reminder to work to get the audience's attention. Now, obviously, you're not going to destroy a VCR in front of an audience, but what are you going to do to get your audience's attention? Think about that beyond just the obvious, okay? So what is the job of an introduction? Give me one thing. Job of an introduction?
Catch attention.
Get their attention, and then what else?
State what you're gonna say.
Yeah, exactly. Let the audience know what you're going to be talking about. The biggest thing is your thesis. That's the whole point of your speech. And then giving your preview statement, which we'll talk about in just a second, which tells your audience kind of the roadmap of where you're going in your speech, which is your 3 main points, okay? All right, so let me grab my remote again. Job of an introduction, like we said, get audience's attention. And then this volleyball image will hopefully help you.
Set it up.
There you go. Set it up. Yes, yes, yes. So instead of just getting their attention and then immediately giving your thesis statement, that's kind of abrupt. You kind of have to have a setup first, okay? And then give your point. All right? So get the audience's attention and set up the topic. Are we tracking?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's move on. A few review things from your introduction and thesis statement, just a little bit of review to make sure that we're all on the same page. The most important, as we talked about, is your hook. Some don'ts, and this was discussed in the intro video. Some don'ts. Don't introduce your introduction or yourself. Hi, I'm Krista Price, and I'm going to be talking about, we already know your name, okay? And telling us what you're going to talk about instead of just introducing it in an interesting way is always a little bit annoying too. So just start with your hook. Are we tracking, Anthony? You with me? Alex, you with me? Kind of, sort of. All right. So don't introduce your introduction. Another don't start with a question. A lot of people are doing this. Have you ever, or did you ever think about, or what if you Try to avoid the question, not because it's altogether bad, you guys, but because it's kind of, I call it 4th grade. It's kind of 4th grade. It's kind of still elementary. Let's get a little more creative than that. Question.
Can you kind of like paint a picture with your hook?
Yeah, try to avoid, that's I think the next one.
Wait, you're really
Try
gonna paint a picture?
Not literally, paint a picture with words, I think. Is
Yeah, I mean, I like have a hypothetical situation like you, blah, blah,
Right,
but
right.
like, well, there's this, or describe something that's there.
Yeah,
That would
anytime you
motivate
can
it.
paint pictures with words, that's, hey guys. Anytime you can paint pictures with words, that's a very visual thing for your audience, so that's definitely helpful. Avoid the hypothetical,
Yeah.
which is the next one up here.
Yeah.
Avoid, imagine you're on a spaceship. Well, we can't. We haven't then. Or even the hypotheticals that we can relate with. You know, you're on your way to school. No, I'm not. I'm sitting and listening to your speech. You know, so try to avoid those hypotheticals because again, that's very 4th grade-ish. Okay. Don't start with a dictionary definition. This is now we're graduated down to 3rd grade. Webster's dictionary defines courage as, guess what? We all know what courage
I would never do
okay. So try to avoid the dictionary definition beginning as well. Second most important thing, which we already talked about, is your thesis. Where does the thesis go?
After the hook.
Well, you have the hook, and then you kind of have the setup, and then you have your thesis at the end of your introduction. What's that?
That bumps that spike.
Exactly, bumps that spike. There you go. Job of a thesis. Let's review. Job of a thesis.
To explain what you're doing.
Okay, give the point of your speech. To give the point of your speech, which explains to your audience what you're doing. Some of you probably need to revise your thesis statements from when you turn them in. How many of you had trouble writing your thesis statement? Anybody? Okay. Make sure if you have any trouble, email me or catch me after school or meet with me during lunch, or I'm here for you. I want to be your resource. So use me if you're struggling. I will help you, okay? Because the further you get behind, the harder it gets. If you stay up with it, this class is super easy. But if you start to get behind, it's trouble. So if you're struggling with an aspect, including your thesis, come see me and I'll help you, okay? All right. And then also for research speeches, so we have our attention getter and our hook. We have our thesis. But right before we get into the body of the speech, and this is for researched speeches, we have something called a preview statement. Do any of you know what a preview statement is?
It's a statement that previews.
Ah, see, there you go. Named well. Yeah, exactly. It's a statement that previews by giving the 3 main points of your speech. Easiest part of your speech to write, okay? The only reason you do that is because you want to kind of give your audience a mental roadmap of where you're going. So I'm going to show a couple clips. For video people, the sub will play the clips for you, so you can pause this video right now and watch them with the sub, and we'll talk about them afterwards. So you can pause for a second. All right, so in each of those clips that you just watched, you probably noticed that the speaker tried to get the audience's attention. Some of them were better than others. They set up their topic. Most of them had a thesis statement, and then finally, what I really wanted you to watch for was the preview statement. What were their 3 main points, and how did they tell the audience those points? So hopefully you caught that in each of those clips. Okay, moving on. Keeping an audience's attention. Now this is the middle of things where it's much harder for people to pay attention. So just so you know, obviously getting the audience's attention is one thing, keeping it is another. Just so you know, the average adult attention span is 6 to 8 minutes. Now, how long is your speech?
4 to 5.
4 to 5, okay, so that's pretty decent. But the lower you go in age, the lower the attention span is. And truthfully, I think as technology becomes more and more advanced and we can go in and out of things that we care or don't care about.
We become ADD.
Yeah, I think it kind of creates a shorter and shorter attention span. So keep that in mind when you're talking to your audience. They don't have infinite attention spans. So what are you doing to bring the attention back? All right? So, keeping the audience's attention, what are some ways that you can keep an audience's attention?
Shocking visual aids.
Shocking visual aids. Good. Good. Somebody else. What are some?
Not about one piece.
The text.
Good. Not droning on about one aspect. What's that?
Text on your visual aid.
The text on your visual aid. Talk to me about that.
Whether what color, if it's color, different colors, or if it's large or small.
I feel like
Okay.
if you put too much text on your visual aid, though, they're going to focus on reading the text more than
Yeah,
they
that's
listen to
you're
you.
supposed to put like both ones.
Yeah, exactly. You guys have both brought up a good point. If you're using a visual aid, what is going on?
It's lunchtime.
Is there a fight?
Is that Peyton and Ashley?
Up against the door. I don't know what that was about. Anyhow, so you both brought up a good point. If you're using a visual aid that has graphics, or that you're using a Keynote or PowerPoint or something like that, the color of it makes a difference. What the images that you put on it make a big difference. And text. What do you think? More text or less text when you're doing a public speech? Less. Yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise you're just having your audience read your speech. They want to hear from you. So let whatever you're using as a visual aid. What's going on back there, Alex? Whatever you're using as visual aid, let that support what you're talking about. Don't let it replace what you're talking about. Do we understand? Are we tracking? Okay, good. What are some other things that keep an audience's attention in the middle of a speech?
Just randomly start talking louder. Not help at all.
If you randomly start talking louder,
Start yelling.
any sort of change could bring an audience back.
That's
Yeah.
what Mr. Tutalian did. Except
Really?
he had like, what's that where you just scream out?
Like Tourette's or something.
he had that.
You know, yeah, that's going to get your audience
he-
back.
He purposely did that.
No, because someone told me that he had that, and I was
told
like,
you?
No. He
He purposely
purposely
does
does
okay,
that.
good. So I was gonna say now I feel bad for laughing.
He's just bringing the audience's attention back. Apparently. What's that? If it supports what you're trying to do in your speech, I guess that's fine. Another way to really change the attention of the room is through volume the other way. If you start talking more quietly. Now, in a public speech, do you want to yell out or all of a sudden go to quiet? Probably not, but recognize that you do have power with volume. So if you see people starting to wane or, like attention starts to go away, you might change the way you move as you speak. I'm stepping up the CR part. Or you could, yeah, sure, you can walk around. If you're confident with your notes, you don't want to wander, but it's fine to move for your audience instead of just be stuck.
If you see like a person zoning out, can you like
Yeah,
walk up
hand
to them and
motions,
be like,
keep their attention. What did you say?
if you see someone zoning out, can you just like walk up to them and be like, so yeah.
You don't necessarily want to alienate your audience, so, if I'm in the middle of a speech and the focus should be on the speech and on me, I don't want to all of a sudden put it on Gage, okay? Because then everybody stops thinking about what you're saying and they're all, whoosh, what's going on over here?
If a person's zoning off, like at a certain pace, we go Like at there.
Like
Just
what
go
you
over there
do
and
when you
stand-
want
stand right
really
there.
close up one person.
And that's what they just asked too. And I said, generally no, not with your 4 to 5 minutes, because you want to keep the focus on you and what you're speaking about.
Yeah, I know that, but not like make it not too obvious. Just like
Just
go
like-
there and continue your speech of just like be standing.
Could you get their attention more if you started to give more eye contact to that part of the group?
Yes.
I
Probably.
feel creepy when I do that though.
Yeah, it's
Because I have
something
an
to get
issue
used
with
to.
sign language because sometimes I'll fixate on one part because it doesn't move. And it'll be a person. And
Yeah.
I'll just be staring right at them and be like, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's, you want to create contact with your audience, eye contact with your audience, but you want to make sure that it's across the room. Some of you, when I gave back your feedback for your first speech, one of the comments was make sure you look at all parts of your audience. Because I was sitting back there, and what would happen with some of you is you just spoke to me. Now, am I your whole audience?
No.
No,
You're the
I'm
one
going to be
grading
the,
it, so
I'm
you're the
going
most
to be the one
important.
grading it. Although with your last speech, there was no grade.
It depends on who you're speaking to.
So you want to make sure that you include this table, okay? Are we tracking? All right, let's move on. Some ways to keep your audience's attention. Take a look at the screen. Some ways to keep your audience's attention. Come on, remote. Word choice, you guys talked about that a little bit. The way you set up your speech, would that be more the art or the science?
Science.
Yeah, more the science of crafting a good speech that people want to listen to. Another way to keep your audience's attention and make sure that your speech is organized, that you're not all over the place, art or science of speaking? It's more the science, how you set up your speech. So even if you're a great speaker and you're like, whatever, I don't have to prepare. Yeah, you do. The science has to be in order as well. Energy, art, more the art or the science?
Art.
Yeah, that's more the art of public speaking. That's going to keep your audience's attention. If we can tell that you care about what you're talking about, we'll care about it and listen to it more. But if you instead are like, okay.
You turned into Charlie Brown's mom.
Everybody now. Yeah, but if you're standing up there just reading at us, we get no sense that you're, stay with me boys, we get no sense that you're interested in your speech, so why should we be? We're just sitting back there thinking, man, I wish I could be doing my chemistry homework right now.
No, we're not.
Or something else that's due next hour, okay? So try and keep energy in your speech. Pauses, if you're just rattling through facts and never take a chance for your audience to process, sometimes pauses can really help an audience focus and pay better attention, and so on. Obviously visuals, you're supposed to have watched a video on visual aids. What are some things that you learned from that visual, besides the ones that you already talked about? Yeah?
Well, in our speech, could we like put a couple pictures on the overhead?
Yeah. As long as it supports what you're talking about.
Go faster, you know?
Sure. Yep. As long as that helps to explain what you're talking about, or if you use it as your hook or whatever. But you have to have a visual aid for this speech. Now there's
Like
go ahead.
one or just many?
At least one. Okay.
So that could be like one picture?
Depends on how well it's used, what you'd get a grade on for that one picture. So really be thinking, how can I support this content visually to my audience as well, okay? So be thinking about that. If you have no clue, talk to me. I'll give you some
I
ideas.
have no clue.
Okay, then you can talk to me later and I'll give you some ideas, okay? Some types of visuals that you can use. PowerPoint is obviously one. Are any of you Mac users and would use Keynote instead? URL?
Only a
Okay. If that's the case, let me know, because you'd have to project from my computer instead, and I'm usually typing notes on my computer. So if that's the case, just let me know. But PowerPoint is one option. Movie and YouTube clips. Now, your speech is 4 to 5 minutes. If you show a 3-minute clip, do you think that's an appropriate balance of? No. Clips do not count towards your speaking time. But think about balance. Generally, a 30-second or less clip could definitely work for your speech. If you're going, a minute and beyond, then that's like, a quarter of your speech. So keep that in mind. You want whatever you're showing to support what you're saying, but you don't want it to replace what you're saying, okay? So movie and YouTube clips are a great option for visuals. You could do a demonstration as a visual. So don't just think, oh, my only option is PowerPoint. You've got other options. You could bring in an object, depending on what your topic is. Sometimes people bring in objects as a visual. The video that you had to watch for visual aids, it talked about make sure the object isn't a prop. What did I mean by that?
Not something you're just
Like not the center of your whole speech, but like a part of it.
Okay, it's a part of the speech with a prop that's like, okay, I think the example I gave on the video was, I'm doing my speech on the history of Wrigley's gum. Here's my visual aid, a packet of Wrigley's gum. Okay, does your audience already know what Wrigley's gum looks like?
Probably.
First you introduce what you're
But speaking about just the visual in this case, okay, yeah, that was a horrible introduction, I agree with you. But speaking about the visual, would that count as a visual? Just, oh, here's Wrigley's gum.
No, because there's nothing you're holding. You're just having hands.
Okay, but if I had the gum in my hand, theoretically speaking, yes.
Well, you said no hypotheticals.
There's my analytical. But my point, you guys, is your audience already knows what a pack of Wrigley's gum looks like. It's not helping inform, and it's not helping you explain anything. So if you're wondering, is my visual aid a good visual aid, ask yourself, is it helping me better inform the audience, or is it helping me better explain something to the audience? That'll help you decide whether it's a good visual aid. Yes, sir?
So if you describe like how they got their logo, could you use that?
You'd like show the logo?
Yeah.
Potentially, if there's like, I was going to give an example, but I'm like, no, that's something I taught in my theater class. You guys wouldn't know what I was talking about. Yeah, you could if there's a way that's helping you better explain that, sure. Like if there was a secret message in the logo and you projected and magnified the logo so that we could see it and we're like, oh yeah, there is. Okay, that's different than just using something as a prop. Does that make sense, the distinction, you guys? Okay, all right. So objects you could bring in. Some people, especially with persuasion, create brochures or things that they pass out to the audience of steps that they can take to, make change in this area or whatever. With informative speech, brochures don't work as well, but that could be an option depending on your speech topic. Someone's doing their speech on the flu, I think. So that a brochure might work for something like that.
We could bring in a petri dish of the flu back.
Are all visuals, next question on the screen, are all visuals good visuals?
No.
Okay, what would describe a bad visual?
A bag of gum.
Too much.
Pack of gum. Too much what?
Too many pictures, too much text.
Well, if you're talking about sleeping and you get a picture of like food.
If you're talking about what?
Sleeping
Sleeping.
and you have a picture of food.
Okay, unrelated things would not be good visuals. Good.
So I could, like, for my visual, I could just do a picture of someone sleeping.
Would that help to inform the audience or help you to better explain something in your speech?
No.
No. Yeah, no.
But I don't know what else to do.
Are you talking about cycles of sleep, or are you talking about
I'm
REM
talking about
sleep?
what dreams mean.
Okay.
Then go online and type in dream.
Ms. Price,
Yes?
do you have Stephanie White with you right now?
Yes?
Could I see the office for a moment?
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Everybody together.
Such a rule breaker.
There should be a part in your speech where you're informing something that the audience might not already know about. That'd probably be the best place to think about a visual for your topic. I have some ideas in mind. Again, talk to me, because we're on a short time schedule, talk to me later and we can come up with options. Okay. Are all visuals good visuals? No. I have some examples. We'll look at them next class, the good, the bad, and the ugly visuals that students in the past have turned in, or not turned in, but used in their speeches. So we'll take some time next class to kind of analyze some of those visuals, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's some bad, and there's some ugly, and there's some good. So you guys know typically what's good, bad, and ugly. Now you just got to create it for yourself, okay?
Like that girl's PowerPoint.
Preferably the good part. Huh?
Like that girl's PowerPoint that came up when you were giving it to me.
The Elmer's glue speech.
Oh yeah,
Oh, and
exactly.
then
That was both the bad and the ugly.
SUVs all up on the screen and
All
whatnot.
right, where are we at with time? You guys are out of here at...
We had 19 minutes.
All right, so I'm going to show a little clip about PowerPoints, and it's a comedian kind of sharing what he hates about, when you watch visual or watch PowerPoints, or when people are speaking and they use PowerPoint. So he brings up some of the stuff that you guys probably already know, but kind of approaches it from a different angle, kind of a humorous angle. So we'll watch that. Pause the video. The sub will play the clip there. Okay, so obviously, he's trying to approach it from kind of a humorous side. What are some of the truths about what he said, though?
Don't read the PowerPoint.
Everything, the colors, don't read the PowerPoint, especially when you only have 4 minutes to impress an audience, okay? Yeah, sometimes your teachers put text on the screen because that's with learning. you want to provide a visual and an auditory and a kinesthetic one possible. But for your 4 to 5 minute speech, when the focus should be on your speech, you don't want to put all the text up there. Then you're just asking your audience to read, and then why don't you just hand out a handout of your speech and let them read that? You know, the whole point is to support your speaking. Okay.
Don't bullet point everything.
Don't bullet point everything. Exactly.
Never use Comic Sans on anything.
Comic Sans. Yeah.
Comic Sans, or Times New
That's such a-
Roman because it sucks.
Or
Yeah.
web things.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Or what things are
But the font you choose says something about what you're presenting as well. Make sure it's readable,
Verdana.
large enough for your audience to see. What did you say, Christina?
I'm using Gothic.
Verdana.
You're using Gothic? Are you pale and wearing a little black? All right. To close out today, I want to talk a little bit. We've talked about your intro, what you need to include in your intro. We've talked about trying to keep your audience's attention, both in word choice, visuals, the energy that you bring to the speech, trying to bring your audience back as often as possible instead of just powering through and listing things from an outline, trying to actually connect with your audience and keep their attention. And then finally, we're going to talk about the conclusion of your speech. So I thought we'd close out today by watching Tony Robbins, who we've watched the first chunk of his speech, the second chunk of his speech, and now we're going to watch the very end in which he tells a story. So notice, what is it that he does in the conclusion of his speech that is memorable? That's the key word with conclusions. Make sure that they're memorable, and we'll talk about it afterwards. All right? So Tony Robbins, his final speech, and then we'll talk about what you need to do in your conclusion. So if you could pause it, watch. All right, so pausing it at that moment. What, as an audience member, like, what's your initial
One more.
I know.
3 more minutes.
Before we turn the recording on, I got yelled at over here for pausing it. So why do you want to know more?
Because you ended in the middle of something interesting.
It was an interesting
wanna hear
and
how-
heartfelt story.
An interesting and heartfelt story. It's definitely very memorable.
Was he the guy
It's
who
definitely
predicted
shocking.
9/11? Because I know someone did that, and then
Say that again?
was he the guy who like predicted 9/11? Because I know there was a guy who did, and then it actually happened. And
No. Are you talking about Tony Robbins? Did he?
No.
Oh, okay.
The guy who was
the
Pakistani.
Pakistani guy? No, he's just talking about doing this seminar in, what do you say, Hawaii?
Are you gonna play the rest?
Yes, I will. But don't you find it interesting that you know, he's out of time and he's like, oh, I'm out of time. You want to get to the point as a speaker, and it's hard. It's not always easy. But make it your goal to get to the point as a speaker where your audience isn't like, okay, finish up, let's go. Instead, your audience is going, wait, I want to hear the end, okay? It's a skill, it's an art, it takes time. I don't expect you to necessarily get it in theater 1, but you always want to make sure that that end part, speech 1. You always want to make sure that end part is memorable, because brain research shows that which do we remember most? First and last. So you want to end well as well. So let's hear the rest of what Tony Robbins has to say about this scenario. Okay.